Welcome to the What If podcast. I'm Kate Wong, a growth strategist and operator in tech, part-time university faculty, and your podcast host. In each episode, I sit down with international women, third culture thinkers, and women building across cultures, careers, and continents. We talk about the choices we make, the risks we take, the pivots we navigate, and the moments that shape us into who we become. Behind every leap of faith, there's always one question at the heart of it all. What if? Today, I am joined by Lesley Li, a partnership leader whose impact has been across media and communication, computer science, sales and trading, fintech, and now in partnership. What makes her story interesting is that her story didn't follow a specific linear path. She has explored children's impact work through the UN, studied computer science, worked in sales and trading, pursued an MPA, contributed to impact-driven work with the Kennedy family. In this episode today, we'll talk about how she made those pivots and how the technical skill sets she learned from computer science classes has served her in her career, how she carries herself in the business world, and how she builds confidence in a world she walks in where she doesn't immediately speak the languages yet. We'll also talk about her perspective on international students and how the hidden assets can contribute to how she works with people today. At the heart of Lesley's story is a question that a lot of us wrestle with. What if? How do you build a life that is both ambitious, impactful, and true to who you are? Let's welcome Lesley to the podcast. Hi, Lesley. Welcome to the What If podcast. I'm super excited to have you here today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Obviously, we know each other for about 10 years now, but for listeners that are meeting you for the first time, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? What brought you to the U.S.?
Yeah, sure. So I actually came to the US when I was 18 years old. Like many, I came for college and I stayed ever since. I did my undergrad and grad at NYU, and then I joined sales and trading at different investment banks. And then afterwards, I did ventures. Also, I got to join as the head of partnerships for a very fast growing fintech startup. I was also the fellowship for the Kennedy Family Foundation, where I engage a lot of private equity investors. So if you really look back, like during the past 10 years in the United States, I've been doing a lot of work very similar and relevant to strategic partnerships, but in different verticals.
That's great. What was your early idea of success? And has that ever changed with you pivoting into different industries?
Yeah. So I think when I was younger, especially in high school, my dream was actually to join United Nations. So that's like what I saw as success. And I joined UNDP when I was in college in like freshman year, like or end of freshman year, beginning of sophomore year. And that was like a very interesting experience in Beijing. So I kind of got to fulfill my dream. And then in that definition, I think success means like very positive impact to the world. And it was also because of that experience, I kind of realized that for me to make like the most effective impact, I want to learn how to allocate capital and how to work with capital to help with public good. So I think my definition for success has always been evolving, but it does not change the part that for me, like success is not just defined by how much I make or how much I'm able to bring in as revenue for a company, but it's more like, am I using the private capital to create public good in some shape and form? That's what I see as a meaningful success for myself.
That's awesome. And your path obviously has touched so many different worlds from media and communication to computer science, sales and trading, as you said, and public service, and now into partnerships. When you look back, what were the pivotal decision-making moments that led you to where you are today?
I think there are probably a lot because I constantly think about like what's the next step like for myself. And I think I'm someone who's like really honest with myself. And there are moments like I figure, okay, maybe there's something bigger for me than where I'm currently at. Um, I think maybe one of those moments was when I decided to study computer science because that was not a very intuitive decision for me. I never really enjoyed any of those kind of classes before I took Python. Because like my imagination was like, oh, I like the MCC, like media culture communications. I like studying French. I like the first major early childhood special education. So it's like I had an imagination of who I am and also like what kind of area I wanted to dive into. So that was not very intuitive, but intuitively, I did know that this is the future. So I took a chance and I took the risk of like constantly failing because after Python, I remember when we started to take like data structure, things started to get harder
Yeah.
exponentially for myself. And but somehow I got to like proceed with that entire journey. And I think that was definitely pivotal because I kind of expanded my limit and then saw like what was actually possible when I pushed forward. I
Mm.
think that definitely could be counted as one of the pivotal moments.
How has that technical skill set, I'm really curious, changed the way how you think about business and work?
I think it makes me braver because I know like we both went to NYU and NYU's Quran, like for computer science, like classes are very, very competitive. So I worked with some of the smartest peers I have ever like known in my entire life. That was really humbling because I was like,
Mm.
oh, this is not something I could actually be number one at, apparently in a classroom. I wasn't even number 10 or anything close to that. And I realize I wouldn't die from it. It's not like something if you are not like the best at it, like if it's a skill that you are really eager for, it is okay to go through that learning curve. And I think that gave me confidence at work when I became the only one with a computer science degree, even though I sometimes probably make statements like, "Oh, I'm so bad at coding, blah, 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 blah." But deep inside, I know that, like, I definitely know more than them. And that gives me, like
Totally.
yeah, like, technical literacy as well to, like, actually understand different concepts with comfort. Because 'cause I'm like, I've seen this before so many times, and,
Yeah.
it is okay to learn something new, especially now with the help of AI, it's actually way easier than before. Because when we studied computer science, it was probably, like, 10 years ago, and I joined, like, as a sophomore. So, that was a while ago.
Was definitely a confident boost. For me personally, I've taken a Python class, switching from a mindset of being in literature and arts and communication into something that's like super logical is life changing. And I learned how to think in a different way. I'm also curious how you think about the combination of the skill sets that you have. Obviously, you've also had a major in media and communication. How does that combo skill set serve you in your career?
I think it somehow positioned me really, really well for the era of AI. Because when I was studying those 2 majors, they were very different because it feels like at one end, I was, like, learning how to communicate with people, and at the other end, I was learning how to communicate with machines, with computers, and like both schools under NYU have very different approaches to teach students too. I feel when I was at
Mm.
MCC, it was more like the work was like very collaborative and it has a lot of tolerance for, oh, if you don't know something, like come here and then like let's like figure out a way to help you out. But for computer science, it's more like you're on your own. You have to like actually reach out and tolerate that level of like discomfort to a degree. I think as a combo, like right now, it somehow served me really, really well communicating with AI. Cause like I can do like strategic partnerships. Of course, I have to like interact with human beings every day, but I really know how to leverage AI to make sure that my work is the most efficient. And then
Mm.
hopefully in the future, I can build something with that too.
Totally. I think there's a lot of new jobs right now in the market that's called prompt engineering or something along that line. And that requires someone who have really good communication skill sets to give command to the agent and to the AI tools to help us build what we want. And so I think your combo skill set is definitely super valuable. Um, and I know some of your early interests was connected to children's impact and the UN. And later on, you also became interested in the idea of allocating capitals to these areas. How did that interest came along?
Yeah. I think for me, it probably comes from like a very simple logic is that if you don't have money in your pocket, it's very hard to make actual changes happen in the world. I think a lot of talks can sound very privileged when it comes to like people who are in underprivileged areas when you don't actually have capital to help them.
Mm,
Um, if you really look at the hierarchy of Maslow, like you have to really fulfill a lot of basic needs of human before you proceed with like stuff like love, like home, like all those sense of fulfillment. So I think from my standpoint, I got to witness that by working at NGO and for profit of how sometimes vastly different of people, how they think, how they approach world problems. And that's
mm,
where I kind of found my strength is that I truly have this passion to make really positive impact to the world. While I am very good at having really commercial conversations and making actual deals happening and producing revenue. So I guess that's like probably coming from a lot of like trials and errors because like I tried to be a coder too. I didn't become a
yeah.
coder. That was probably a blessing in disguise because like one of my best friends was like, I don't want you to be a coder because that would waste a lot of like talent you have. Because it's a different skill set that I'm not really good at. I have a lot of friends who are extraordinary coders, but I see myself with like very different skill set. So to answer your question, I would say that it probably evolves in a way that I observed what the world
Mm.
needs and what I'm actually good at.
It seems like you're super honest with yourself, assessing your capabilities and abilities and what you're really passionate about, um, and the work that you're doing and really finding that niche for yourself. You've also spent a lot of time in sales and trading. How did that chapter teach you a thing or two about business and how you want to approach your career?
I think that was a very interesting period of time because that's actually the first time I got to interact with like very, very sales oriented jobs. Because I did do equity sales, equity derivative sales, and prime brokerage sales. And all those were kind of like an opportunity for me to learn that I'm actually really good at this.
Mm,
And there's like a really big world inside of finance. Because when I first got to know finance, it's probably more related to trading. Because given the nature of like, I was in a computer science degree, but after I got to, like, work in those desks, I did see, like, how well I can do, like, even though sometimes you're selling different asset classes, it doesn't change the nature of what makes a really good sales, and I think that chapter really showed me that it's not about doing what you heard people around you are doing, but actually finding your own niche. So I think
mm.
that was very important, and it gave me the confidence to understand very complicated concepts, and not get intimidated when it comes to like more real world talks and
Mm.
bigger size of deals.
I really love that. And that probably led you to partnership, right? You've done a lot of work in the Kennedy family for their human rights work with huge influence. How does a partnership actually mean to you when you first started doing that kind of work?
I think, I was really lucky because I got very, very great team to work with, especially when I was working at, the Kennedy Family Foundation. I was in a team of 4, and I saw how, um, the leaders in my team were building, like, really long-term strategic partnerships with investors who care for long-term impact. I think at least, like, the very first concept in my mind is something really long-term and something
Mm.
strategic and also is mutually beneficial. That's like my initial understanding of partnerships. And then it later evolves into like the shared value is very, very important of like
Mm.
how you guys like ally with like the way you approach things and also like what kind of goal are you trying to achieve together.
And how would you measure whether a partnership is successful or not?
So I think it really depends on like what kind of industry you're accounting for, because the way that we measure impact at the foundation is very different from how we measure impact at a fintech company. So for profit, partnerships still lend in like how it's more revenue oriented, right? But at the end of the day, you're trying to leverage bigger scale of deals compared to like direct merchant sales. But when it comes to foundation, I think um, it really measures like more non-quantifiable things comparatively. of like what kind of, because when we were engaging a lot of LPs and GPs who have the power to allocate billions of dollars. And those changes are not going to be immediate. It wouldn't be
Mm.
very short-term revenue. You can see the way that like a for-profit fintech partnerships drive. It really comes down to like what kind of organizations are you engaging in? What kind of investors are you engaging in? What asset classes do they allocate? For the LPs, like what kind of fiduciary duties they have, and then what kind of like topics are we bringing in into these strategic partnerships and conversations, and how does that actually impact from like more a top to bottom approach, like how the LPs allocate money and how does that impact GP and how does that impact like the mass audience. So that's how I see the difference in it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. And looking back, I know we went through very different chapters of your career. Was there a common thread between all the different changes and pivotal moments? Was it, the curiosity that drove you? Was it the honesty to yourself? Like, what was the common thread?
I think the common theme there was probably um it feels like taking a quantum leap a lot of time. Like you have to actually take a leap of faith
Yeah.
and it's a lot of unknown. It's like to a very uncomfortable level of the unknown.
Hmm.
And it comes with like I think the voices inside of who you actually are and versus what you are doing at the moment and how is that gonna lead you to fulfill your dream. So I think the common theme is probably just like be very genuine and honest about your desire and
Yeah.
your dream life and how is that relevant and irrelevant to what you are currently doing at that moment and what should you do next.
Yeah. I think that's a great advice for anyone that is, navigating career or in the pivotal moments of their life and trying to figure out what to do next, is to really be honest with yourself and take a leap of faith.
Very hard sometimes though, because it's like when you're facing the unknown, like a lot of things are not mapped for you. So like to actually believe there's something bigger on the other side of the unknown, I think it's like one of the main reasons why a lot of people cannot take that leap of faith.
Mm.
So just like how to find out a way to root in what you believe in, I think that's probably the key part to move the needle. Yeah.
And I know we talked about this a little bit in our previous conversation. I think reflection is a big part of your journey, and you constantly write down thoughts in your journals. Did that change how you think about your career? And when you're looking back, like taking those leap of faith and kind of foreseeing the bigger things that's going to happen, like you have mentioned, like how has that journaling and self reflection helped?
I think journaling is like manifesting your thoughts into like actual like words on the paper. It helps a lot to like clarify what you're thinking and how you're looking at yourself and how you're looking at your life. I really like just like reading through what I wrote before and really compare that to how I think now. So I got to
Yeah.
see like that um change in like how I approach stuff and like how much I have grown and how far I have come. I think it's like a really great way to like recognize some of the blocks in your thinking and to help reshape them for who you actually want to be.
That's very interesting. Do you have a moment that like you just read back to your previous journals and be like, all these make sense. I can connect the dots and actually molded my thoughts into who I want it to become.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot because sometimes when I read through what I wrote before, I was like, oh, this is exactly what happened. Like, I really wanted that, and I think when you write down a lot of stuff, like, the journey between, like, what you think and what you do becomes shorter because
Mhm.
you after you identify those blocks, you're able to resolve them, and then you will really do what you're thinking because your thoughts are very clear. If you consider
Yeah.
them as, like, demand to, like, how you put into actions every day, a very clear prompt compared to, like, a very unclear prompt is way more efficient to move yourself forward, and I think for me, like, to pick one particular moment, probably how I would think about the career I want Like, I always write down, like, what are the things I really want to come true, and usually what I do is I wouldn't read it every single day, but, when I need some strength, I will, like, reread it, and then
Yeah.
after a while, like, I'm like, "Oh, that's exactly what I wrote down." It's very interesting.
What is one thing that you can share with us that you want it to come true one day?
I think I definitely want my own children foundation one day. That's something that has not changed for the
Yeah,
longest time. And but I also understand sometimes like when you write down stuff, they're not the purpose of it is not to fulfill them immediately, but find the
mm,
meaningful and right way to accomplish them. So I think
totally.
that's like one of the things.
I cannot agree more with that. And now let's switch gear and move into personal brand and some call it executive presence. And this is a topic that I am super interested and really curious about your thoughts. Because you've been in rooms that have a lot of high stakes and probably people that are super cross functional and full of accomplished people. How did you carry yourself in these rooms and how did you learn how to do that?
I think that's a really great question. I probably learned that from engaging in those conversations since I was really young. Because my family comes from like a very entrepreneurial background. So I
Mm,
got to like witness a lot of like business dinners when I was really young. And then afterwards, I really got to see how people I look up to do it when I was working on the foundation. And I think a lot of that is understanding that humans are humans, like humans not God. I think that's what navigates me the most. So it doesn't matter, like it does not automatically give you the prestige because you are there. It's more like
mm,
how you are treating others, how you're carrying yourself, how you're carrying the purpose of the organization you represent, and how do you achieve that. So in that process, you are not giving other people power to like
mm.
actually um be more important than your own presence, but you're treating people equally and you give yourself a chance to be treated equally. I think that's like the high level thinking I have when I approach these kind of situations.
I really, really love that perspective. And I'm sure that you have entered a lot of rooms or industry because you've pivoted into different fields where you don't really speak the language just yet or like isn't so fluent in the language just yet. What is your strategy for building that credibility and, giving yourself power to learn?
I think when you're like really, really young and you got an opportunity to get into those rooms, it's going to be a given that you're not going to know as much as like another person who has like 50 years more experience than you. That's like logical, right? I think
Mhm.
one thing I do is that I try not to lie because it's like when you're trying to really be in those rooms, like, I think it's very important to be honest about what you do
Yeah.
know and what you do not know, because people's trust is not based on how much knowledge you know, but how genuine you are approaching those connections. So, what I always do is try to be really positive, really honest and very genuine about my intention and what I'm actually trying to get out of these conversations. And I think very importantly is that it's okay to not say anything sometimes. I think that's
Mm,
one thing that is very important is that you don't need to say a lot to have a presence. Like when you don't know something, it's okay to be silent. And it's okay to listen to other people and see what they have to share and learn from them. You don't need to be the person who talks the most. Um,
mm.
and I think the best part of these kind of opportunities is for you to actually tell yourself that it's okay to be authentic. It's okay to be me in these kind of rooms, um, very authentically and be there to learn and to give back.
Is that very similar to when you say, I want to bring my authentic self to work? Is that the same approach that you would use?
Yeah, I think authenticity is actually very important in life because that's like the core of what each person has uniquely. And
Totally.
yeah, I try to look into that and then unblock what is preventing me from being that version of myself. And I think work is like one of many scenarios that could be very helpful. But I do believe like when you're in this world, when you're looking for the opportunities that are actually made for you, it's very hard to find them if you're not really authentic yourself. Because how
Yeah.
can they
Eh,
find you?
That's a beautiful perspective. And thank you so much for sharing that. I know that you have built partnership across different teams. I'm so curious, what is one invisible impact that you think when people look at your work, you'll leave to the team?
I think maybe how how wildly imaginative I am to approach some like very it doesn't look like very realistic goals at the moment, but they end up being
Yeah.
so, like, I really like to I think it comes back to the thinking of, like, humans are not God, so it's very important not to put anyone you're trying to partner with on a pedestal, but more on a
Mm,
so, like, I like to think about what are some things we can bring in for an organization who is probably way bigger than us, and
mm,
that's something I think will be an invisible impact for other people seeing my work because they probably looked, impossible at the beginning, but you can see they came into fruition, which means they are possible.
totally. And I think great minds don't think alike, and you always need someone who's bold to say the ideas. Now, I'm curious to learn about your MPA degree. What made you decided to pursue an MBA, and how has that helped you make your journey more clear?
Yeah, I think the reason I wanted an MPA degree was because of my interest to have my own foundation. So they're all interconnected. And when I joined the MPA degree at NYU Wagner, that was like the first time I got to see like my definition for success previously was possible to combine the public interest with private capital. And that's why I did a specialization in social impact, innovation, and investment so it's more like a lot of impact investing courses. So I think I've been pretty consistent on what I want, even though I've tried very different things, but they're all trying to come into union of like one picture of what I'm trying to build um,
Mm,
from like a very personal perspective that's meaningful for me.
totally. Did you learn any skill sets that you're still using today and that has been super impactful to what you do now?
I think in my MPA degree, I actually got to um, gain two things that are even more I don't know if precious is the right word, but they're more like not quantifiable than like actual skill set. One is like I gained some of like the closest friends I have because I found out that like when you share very similar mission,
Yeah.
it's like making the world a better place. That's actually very hard to find when you just like go out in the world and you're just like wondering and you're looking for that kind of group of people. So taking those coursework usually are the ones who do care. And it's very good to have that training with those kind of people, end up becoming friends with them. And I think second is that you got to like actually, because our coursework was very it entails a lot of applications in the real world. So I got
Mm,
to engage some of like the most prestigious like NGOs and then see how they're approaching different problems, like the impact investing metrics and like everything. So it shows that like a lot of things expanded my mind of what is possible to like incorporate private capital into public impact. And that actually
yeah.
makes me feel more sure that one day, like all the work, like all the dots are gonna get connected.
I'm so happy for you. I talked to a lot of people who did an MBA or like a graduate degree, and one of the biggest learning for them is also making the friends that are like minded, are thinking the same way and can potentially do things and start something together. And so I'm so glad that you had the opportunity to do that. Now, I would love to talk about international students' perspective. You're originally from Beijing, China. How has that cross cultural experience shaped the way how you work and how you think about things?
Yeah. So I was actually an RA at NYU, like a resident assistant. And I was like, I had probably like 56 students on my floor who were all like from very different backgrounds. I think being an international student like was very helpful because I came in with like a very different perspective. And
Mm,
I think a natural narrative is the fear of not belonging. But I also learned the strength of like, do not let anyone ever tell you you do not belong. Cause like, again, humans are humans. I think having that kind of grounding training to be like someone who's more like an outsider coming into like a foreign country and trying to build your own things actually give
Yeah,
you the lever of like the resilience most people will not have.
totally.
Yeah. And I think those are treasure for you to like build whatever you want because if you were given those kind of challenges at the beginning and you're able to overcome them, then you're able to do more beyond that. Um, I think my international student background gave me a lot of knowledge into a market that most people are not familiar with here, no matter when I do business with them or when I work with them. And I got to bring in this perspective and the market expansion for those people because I know how both of the market works.
Totally. I think a lot of that resilience can resonate to a lot of people. I'm also curious how you think about failure.
I think failure is probably like a more common theme in my life than success. So it's like it's not even like a bitter statement. I think I see it as like the nature of life. Cause when you fail a lot, it probably means you're aiming for bigger things than what you can achieve at the moment. And it's totally okay because you just need to succeed once. That's what I tell
Yeah.
myself. And because I'm so comfortable and familiar with failures, I try bigger things than people who do not.
Mm.
And that goes back to probably what I said, it's like invisible impact of my work is that I go for really big things and failure is just part of it.
As the famous saying goes, like failure is the mother of success. Before we close, I do have four signature questions that I ask every guest in this podcast. I would love to hear your perspective. The first question is, what is the biggest what if decision that you have made that has shaped the course of your career or your life?
I think for me, probably like a what if moment, besides the one I mentioned earlier to study computer science, is that what if like I can actually build something of my own. I think that's like a big what if moment of like, how do I like stand by my boundary and like really create something that my worth is not dependent on any
Mm.
organization, but purely myself. That's like a huge what if moment that I took actions on. And
Yeah.
I think that's like, it's probably one of the best decisions I've ever made of like really looking at the world of like a place that I have full ownership in the reality that I create. And I made probably a lot of decisions like that, like what if, and then I go into the world with like a decision that people see that I give up something that's really stable for something way
Yeah.
bigger. And so far it has been working out for me.
Yeah. And what's a what if that you're manifesting or going to push yourself to try next?
I think I will probably I'm working on a lot of stuff right now. And then once they come into fruition, I probably will be able to share more. But one of the what if is definitely on the Children Foundation, and that's why I'm engaging in a lot of like charity work and also trying to see how a really mature Children Foundation is building itself and to learn from it.
And when you look 10 years ahead, right, what kind of world do you think our generation will help build?
I think I do believe in AGI. Like I do think like it will be a very different world from where we're living in right now. I do hope that our future generations are still building like a very diverse world that reflects like the impact of different kind of groups of people with very different childhood background and like also different cultures that they can all feel embraced and then they can find their full potentials in that kind of world.
Totally. And before we wrap, what's one thing that you recommend to the audience? It could be a book, a place that you really wanted to travel to or you have traveled to, a skill set or life hack or anything that you wanted to share.
I think for me, I would probably um recommend like if you really want a dog, like go get your dog. Cause I think that's like a life-changing decision for me because I travel a lot and I was like, oh, I should never probably like have a dog even though I really wanted to. And then I actually got to make it work because I got to take my dog to places and turned out he's like he can adjust to like the traveling schedule and I stopped traveling that much too. and he
Yeah.
became like really like the light of like my life. And you got to see like, because I think it's very important when you're trying to build your own world in a very commercial world, you can have like a non-transactional kind of constants in your
Yeah.
life. I think it's one of the best decisions I've ever made. And I have a lot of friends who are waiting to like actual pull that trigger. Personally, I highly recommend it. I think it's a decision you don't need to like doubt that much.
Yeah.
Yeah, one like because of course you have to be really responsible for them. They're like lives, right? But
Yeah.
yeah,
Some of my friends who are planning to have kids, they wanted to use a furry child, a dog or a cat, as their beginning and to test and try and see if they can actually raise a life changing for a lot of people.
yeah. I feel for me, it's like yeah, it definitely teaches me a lot of like how to um interact with like my inner child because I think dogs have
Oh,
that nature to be very pure and very loving. So it's very interesting. It's a very meaningful journey for sure.
yeah. Well, thank you so much, Leslie, for joining the What If podcast today. I feel like we have went into a lot of deep conversation about how you think, how you molded your thoughts, and how you created the world for yourself that you live in. Very proud of you for what you have achieved so far, and I can't wait to see what you achieve next. And I'll always be cheering up for you, always be subscribing to all your impact work.
Thank you so much, Kate. I do enjoy the conversation a lot too.
Thank you for tuning in to the What If podcast. If this episode makes you think, smile, or see things differently, do me a quick favor and share it with someone who might find it helpful too. Because what if one conversation could really change someone's next step? Don't forget to follow the show, and I can't wait to see you next time.